Morning, all. So, with news that we're going to get hockey soon, January 13th being the likely start date now, we're starting to hear trade rumors again. We're starting to hear about UFAs, all this other wonderful stuff. A lot of rumors right now around the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, if you're a Montreal fan, you might crack a grin at the word that Pacioretty's on the trade block. But, you see, and I think it was Brian Burke that brought this up. If we're going to see Vegas signing guys to extensions, we're going to see the Las Vegas Golden Knights bringing in players and then, publicly supporting them and then trading them, it gives them a bad reputation, and it does mean that players are going to look at Vegas as not a very stable place to go. And Pacioretty's rumored to be on his way out so they can make cap space. There's rumors about Marc-Andre Fleury being available, as well as Jonathan Marchessault. And these are not your standard, let's just see what happens and throw a bunch of names at the walls so that when one guy gets traded, you can go, well, I kind of reported on it because I reported on a guy with the same, they both have the letter A in their name, so clearly I know something. I don't do that here either. I still get the, you should do trade speculation. No. Those videos age like bad cheese. But Fleury, Marchessault, and Pacioretty being on the block, and then what drives me insane is, at the same time, there's rumors of them making cap space because they need it, so they can sign Eric Howla or Hoffman. What? See, this is repeating bad behavior. And again, it reminds me of when you're playing EA Sports, when you're playing an NHL franchise, and you're like, this team sucks, and I'm up against the cap, and I'm just going to trade these guys off, and I'm going to sign that guy in free agency. I'm ahead of the game. And then it doesn't get better. And again, you're going to end up in a situation where guys don't want to sign long-term contracts there. They're not going to trust it. And I don't think trading Fleury is as big a deal, but of course the problem they had trading Fleury was a rumor that they weren't willing to retain salary over the summer. So once we got past the season and they were looking to move him, that was the rumor, was if you wanted Fleury, you had to take his whole cap, or you had to find a third team that would take part of his cap, because Vegas wasn't retaining any of it. And if they don't want anybody to make a deal with them where, if you're going to take on Pacioretty $7 million a year cap hit, and you just basically get to walk away with it, I don't know how popular that's going to be with other GMs. I really don't. At a time where we'll get into the financials of the NHL right now, I don't know how many teams are going to be looking to add a $7 million a year Pacioretty. I like Pacioretty. I don't think that he is your absolute number one go-to guy in a playoff series necessarily. I think and again, it's the Taylor Hall argument all over again with Pacioretty. You're going to get your goals, you're going to get your points. Taylor Hall scores more points per game than does Pacioretty in most cases, but I don't know. I see this and I go, well, I did a video a few days ago in Vegas, and I may have to do another one. If they do end up moving Pacioretty, I may have to do another one. Of course, season previews are coming up pretty soon anyways. Once they solidify what the divisions are going to look like, and that should be over, I would say, the next week. And then look for previews rapid fire. Because then I got to get these boards that I've been using for the last 9 months now as not game boards, and get them ready to be game boards again. I have 4 of them. I'm going to have 1 board for each division. I'm kind of excited about that because I'm a nerd. But yeah, so what is Vegas doing? How can you say, okay, we're going to move Pacioretty, we're going to look at Fleury, see what Marchessault's worth. Oh, and then we're going to look at bringing back Howla, and then we'll circle back on Hoffman. It's a weird thing with Vegas. They just brought in Pietrangelo and then had to get rid of Schmidt to bring in Pietrangelo. They bring in Leonard, and now now we got Leonard. Well, maybe we need to get rid of Fleury. It's bizarre. I say keep 2 goaltenders, and I've been having this debate for months now. When we get back to whatever the 2021 season's going to look like, you're going to need 2 goaltenders because there's going to be a lot of back-to-backs. The rumor is that you're going to go to, let's say Toronto's going to Montreal. They'll play 2 games in Montreal. And whether that's back-to-back nights or it's with a day off in between, you're playing a lot of games in a short period of time. And so you're going to need 2 goaltenders. Anyways, today the NHL Board of Governors are going to have their call at 1 o'clock my time Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. There's not expected to be any news out of that because they're not having any kind of a vote or anything. There's going to be a chance for some of the Board of Governors to probably be quite angry about the way things are going and the fact that there's no proration to the salaries or anything. But there really isn't any way around this. The NHL, they're going to come back, and some owners are going to really take it in the teeth. The Canadian division, Realignment, have been confirmed by Gary Bettman because of the border being closed between Canada and the U.S., which is going to stay that way into the new year. You have to have a Canadian division. So the debate, of course, becomes, well, what are the American divisions going to look like? And we've seen some debate back and forth, and I'm sure that owners are having that debate as well. All right, how are we going to do this? And which teams are going to end up in the West? Like the Eastern teams, their Eastern and Central divisions are pretty easy to come up with, but the Western, you're going to have a team that's playing outside of their time zone a ton. Owners, and this came out from Elliot Friedman, actually would prefer to have a longer season than a shorter season because players are not prorating their contracts. If I told you that you as an employer were going to pay the exact same amount of money for your worker to come in for 8 days as you would if they came in for 4, would you rather they work the 8 or the 4? You'd rather they work the 8 because then you're also going to be making more money off the work they do. And owners want that as well. And then the idea of playing in their home arenas is important because of sponsorship deals and just the arena deals themselves. So there's still a lot to be worked out. And I know people are talking a lot about regional lockdowns and city lockdowns and all this, and that's still a thing. I still think you find some kind of a modified bubble situation to start, and then with the idea that if they can find an out, as soon as they find an out, they can do that. I don't know if you might have a bubble maybe for the Canadian teams and not for some of the American. I don't know if you can do it where part of the league is sort of walled off and part of the league isn't. I'm not sure, but they're going to have to get creative, at least to start the year. Once we get into the spring, things are supposed to start getting a lot better overall. And so the idea of everybody being in their own arenas and you'd see some fans in attendance is far more likely. But with salaries not being prorated, apparently, and again, this was from Elliot Friedman, there was an owner who said, I think we should just play a full 82-game season and just finish it in August. And he wasn't laughed out of the room. The idea being, if we do this and we shut down for 2 weeks for the summer games because we know we're not going to get any ratings during the Summer Olympics, who cares? We'll just shut it down for a couple of weeks. So, and again, if they played until late summer, you can get fans back into the buildings and you can absolutely look at almost full arenas, I would think, by August. So there's still the details to be worked out, but odds are it's going to be a 56-game season and end in middle of July. Interesting out of Seattle in terms of how they're putting their team together. So we've already discussed how they've already got a pretty vast scouting staff. They've worked on getting the scouts in place, which is great. You need that right off the bat. And they have a large analytics staff. Might end up being one of the biggest analytics staffs in the National Hockey League. And it's a debate we've had. And I'm agreeing with Brian Burke on this because we're old. That analytics, the advanced stats, are great as part of the picture. They don't tell the whole picture. And so I think they're fine as being part of the entire picture of the players and the team. And so if Seattle goes all in on analytics and the advanced stats for their first year, I'll be very interested to see how that affects the overall results. We've seen mixed results around the NHL when it comes to going full analytics. Florida, a few years back, famously was just full on flat, everything, advanced stats, everything, and it fell apart. Part of the reason Gerard Gallant was fired at the time was because he wasn't obeying the analytics on when to play certain players and what to do, and so they got rid of him so that Tom Rowe could take over and he would just obey the analytics, and the team went off the map. So again, we'll see, right? And I think it's part of the picture. I think you look at baseball, and analytics are very important in baseball, and they have been since the whole Moneyball thing. But you still have to have an allowance for a manager and a coach to make certain moves. I always find it funny when you have a whole subsection of fan base that Just basically, they'll portray themselves as being so much smarter than every coach and general manager in the NHL. And I've never. You can look through any videos I've ever done on anything, and I've never stood here and said I'm smarter than hockey fans on any level, because this is a channel made by a hockey fan to talk about hockey. But there are certainly those that will say, "Oh no, that coach is really dumb because he didn't play this guy in this situation." It's like, but wait, he's got all that anyway. One of those one of those things I would never. There are times where I'm bewildered. Go back to Gerard Gallant, okay? And I'm wearing Vegas. This is good. During that whole San Jose comeback during the major penalty, I was yelling at my TV, "Take a timeout. Why aren't you taking a timeout?" And then it looked like he did. And then he went, "I didn't take a timeout." And it's like, take a timeout. Sit your guys down and go smarten up. Smarten up. We've still got the lead. Never mind. Okay, smarten up. Now, you know what? Forget it. I'm done. Can I go to the airport? So, yeah, we'll see how things go for Seattle. I wish them the best. I do. And I do pay attention to the analytics, but my God, they're dry. You make up a board with analytics and you fall asleep and it doesn't work. I don't think people want a video of me just snoring in front of a board. Some might, but not many. So yeah, we'll see how things go. Best of luck to the Seattle Kraken. Toronto, start the Anderson rumors. Yep. We get the return to play, and within 2 days there's an article on Sportsnet or TSN immediately about Freddie Anderson and whether he's overrated. And so what's Freddie Anderson worth? And so it's Freddie Anderson. So, oh man, being goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs is not a great job. It isn't. Because no matter how good you are, there's always going to be the articles, and there's always going to be all of the media and some fans, not usually the fans, but there's always going to be that media over analyzation of the goaltending. And it even goes back as far as I remember Cujo taking criticism from media at times and thinking, it's not Cujo's fault. Like, he would drag Toronto to a really good record, and then it'd be, yeah, but Cujo had a meltdown in this game. Yeah, because they're overplaying him. And I see some of that with Freddie Anderson, too. I like Freddie Anderson, and I'll be very interested to see what happens with him this year. But you're not going to see a bunch of trade speculation videos with Freddie Anderson on here. So, Forbes magazine has brought out its list of the most valuable teams. Not a lot of movement this year from last year because there hasn't been anything positive over the last 12 months for teams' values. The New York Rangers are the most valued team at $1.65 billion. Toronto second at 1.5. Montreal 1.34. Chicago 1.085. And Boston $1 billion. Now, what do these teams have in common? That's right, they're all original six. And for the record, Detroit was 8th on the list as well. So if you're an original six team, you're very valuable to the NHL. And those top 5 teams bring in a quarter of league revenues. So those are your heavy hitters. And that might be why Jeremy Jacobs, when he's all Jeremy Jacobs about something, he gets listened to, because they generate a lot of money out of Boston. And then the teams at the other end of the valuation list: Winnipeg, valued at $404 million. Buffalo, $385 million. Columbus, $310. Florida, $295, and then Arizona is 31st again at $285 million. Of course, the interesting thing is Seattle is still making their payments. By this spring, Seattle will be officially the 32nd team in the NHL, and they're paying $650 million to get into a league where a lot of teams aren't worth $650 million. This is part of the argument why you have to give Seattle a pretty good team right out of the gate, because you're telling them your team's worth $650 million. And if they look at the Forbes list, they'll go, but why is a lot of your league worth less than $650 million? Why are we paying $650 million? All right, we'll give you a pretty good expansion draft then. Tampa Bay lost $11 million this year, and that's the Stanley Cup champions. Now, of course, if they'd played in their home arena and gone through to the Stanley Cup and won it, they would have made serious cash. With full arenas, would have made serious cash. It just didn't happen. And there were 9 teams that lost $10 million or more over the last season. So a lot of money being bled out by the NHL over the last 12 months. That's likely going to continue this season. And yet you have to look at what's on the horizon. 2021, you've got the new TV deal in the U.S., which is coming up. And we're going to have fans back in attendance for next season. We should be back to full arenas, I would say, by winter of next year. And then things should be much more rosy for the NHL's financial picture. And this does mean that for people who say, I hope we get a break on tickets, there should be. But the reason I say it like that is because I remember the year we lost to the lockout, 2004, 2005, and all the fans, like, they better give us a good break on tickets. Not only that, but I remember owners coming out and saying, boy, if the players get the money they want and if we don't get a salary cap, you guys are going to pay so much more for tickets. We want to keep ticket prices down. And then as soon as they signed the new agreement, they couldn't put ticket prices up fast enough, and fans went back in droves. So I'm not going to guarantee any change in ticket prices. In some markets, it's quite possible, but again, it's going to be driven by demand. And demand, I know, on the Canadian side of the border is still going to be very high. I am mildly surprised at Winnipeg's valuation only being $404 million. And it's the 5 teams in the bottom here. Buffalo is stable. I can't see any situation where the Sabres would leave Buffalo. I really can't see Winnipeg leaving. And I know there's people who have this, oh, they're going to end up moving because of these reasons idea, but I can't see it. I can't see Columbus either. Florida has a really good lease with the building they're in. That lease is pretty much unbreakable. I think it's 2 years from now is the first time they can break that lease and look at maybe a move. And then, of course, there's Arizona, who got their billionaire owner last year, and they're doing their best to make it work. So there's stability in the league, even though we're going through this massive financial issue that hasn't really got an end in sight yet, and yet it kind of sort of does, because we can kind of see it. But again, for owners, they're losing a lot of money. So we'll see how things go for this season, how the Board of Governors call goes, and all that other wonderful stuff. I don't anticipate there being any big news today, but if Pacioretty gets traded, I'll be here to report on it when it happens. I did leave the house last night. We left the house for like 45 minutes. We went to Glow in Langley, which is a Christmas lights show kind of thing. They had it here last year, but obviously they can't have it indoors this year, so it's just a drive-through experience. But I thought when I was leaving the house, I thought, something's going to happen, because something always happens when you leave the house, and then it didn't. So NHL, you had your chance. I left the house for 45 minutes. You could have made an agreement. You could have signed it, and then I would have been, panicked coming home. I got to do a video. They didn't do it, so I tried. I left the house, and it didn't work. But thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Let me know your thoughts regarding any of these items in the comment section below. And we'll circle back on the Vegas topic. Does Vegas trading Pacioretty, looking at getting rid of Marchessault or Fleury, and then bringing in other players, would that again give them the look of a team that doesn't really have any loyalty to its players at all, in a time where I know teams don't normally have a lot of loyalty to players and vice versa, but it just feels like there's almost none from Vegas on some level? But let me know your thoughts. Again, hit like and subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon.